Hey, everybody. Yeah, it seems like we're doing a horny week. It's Valentine's Day week, I guess. Before we get started, I'm gonna toss a snack in my face because I haven't eaten yet. Hey, Rocks for Life, how you doing? Oh my god, the dog is just going crazy over here on the other side of the chair. She really wants up, but this is chocolate. She can't have it, so you gotta go lay down. Lay down. Go to your chair. Go to your chair. Yeah. Go to your chair. Hey, Uncanny Rachel. Hi, yes, Queen. How you doing? This is so dangerous. I'm eating, and the dog is jumping all over my legs, and I've got open flame. That's so good, yes. When you hang out, you can watch the video later. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's pretty gross here too. It's been like cold wind all day. Yeah, I just don't like weather. I'm not a fan of any weather ever. It could just be like warm and sunny all the time. I'd be very happy. I posted a little bit late too, so I'm just gonna give people just a few more minutes to filter in. Just chill in here. Gonna update our chapter numbers. Because we're starting on chapter 27, which is like huge. We're over halfway. We're at 57%. I can't believe last week it was like only like 8%? Not that I know anything about math or how we break this book up. Ah, no, you can't have this. You will get sick. You can't have this. Get out of here. All day on Switch, eh? Oh, bye, Rocks for Life. Thanks for stopping in. All right, guys. I no longer feel like I'm starving to death, which is good. I do apologize in advance. My partner is going to be cooking dinner over in the kitchen, which is just around the corner, so he may make a little noise, but he's going to try to be quiet for us. I'm just happy he's cooking because I am I've had a busy day and I've not really eaten as much as I probably should have. Hence the chocolate. Okay. This music still seems so loud for me, but like I can't turn it down like any lower than it is. So I guess you guys just tell me if it's too loud for you, but we'll go with it for now. Because I really want to get right into this. Katrisha told us this is about to get very steamy, and I'm pretty excited about that. The fact that I can't hear myself is probably good. So yeah, we're going to be getting into chapter 27 here. And yeah, I think I'm just going to jump right in. I don't know what else to say. I've sat here wasting your time long enough. I lay in bed, watching the pools of moonlight shift on the floor. It was an effort not to dwell on Tamlin's face as he ordered me and Lucian to leave and shut the door to the dining room. Had I not been so bent on piecing myself together, I might have stayed. Might have even asked Lucian about it, about everything. But, like the coward I was, I bolted to my room, where Alice was waiting with a cup of molten chocolate. It was even more of an effort not to recall the roaring that rattled the chandelier or the cracking of shattering furniture that echoed through the house. I didn't go to dinner. I didn't want to know if there was a dining room to eat in, and I couldn't bring myself to paint. The house had been quiet for some time now, but the ripples of Tamlin's rage echoed through it, reverberating in the wood and stone and glass. I didn't want to think about all that Rhysand had said. Didn't want to think about the looming storm of the Blight, or Under the Mountain, whatever it was called, and why I might be forced to go there. And Amarantha, at last a name to go with the female presence that stalked their lives. I shuddered each time I considered how deadly she must be to command the High Lords of Prythian, to hold Rhysand's leash and to make Tamlin beg to keep me hidden from her. The door creaked and I jerked upright. Moonlight glimmered on gold, but my heart didn't ease as Tamlin shut the door and approached my bed. His steps were slow and heavy, and he didn't speak until he'd taken a seat on the edge of the mattress. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice was hoarse and empty. "It's fine," I lied, clenching the sheets in my hands. If I thought too long about it, I could still feel the claw-tipped caresses of Rhysand's powers scraping against my mind. "It's not fine," he growled, and grabbed one of my hands, wrenching my fingers from the sheets. "It's..." He hung his head, sighing deeply as his hand tightened on mine. "Feyre, I wish..." He shook his head and cleared his throat. "I'm sending you home, Feyre." Something inside me splintered. "What?" "I'm sending you home," he repeated. And though his words were stronger, louder, they trembled a bit. "What about the terms of the treaty?" "I have taken on your life debt. Should someone come inquiring after the broken laws, I'll take responsibility for Andrus's death." "But you once said that there was no other loophole. The Suriel said there was no..." A snarl. "If they have a problem with it, they can tell me." And wind up in ribbons. My chest caved in. Leaving. Free. Did I do something wrong? He lifted my hand to press it to his lower cheek. Lower cheek? No, it's not his butt, it's his face. It's not his butt, it's his face. It's not his butt, it's his face. He was so invitingly warm, You did nothing wrong. He turned his face to kiss my palm. You were perfect, he murmured onto my skin, then lowered my hand. Then why do I have to go? I yanked my hand away. Because there are people who would hurt you, Feyre. Hurt you because of what you are to me. I thought I would be able to handle them, to shield you from it. But after today, I can't. So you need to go home. Far from here. You'll be safe there. I can hold my own, and you can't, he said, and his voice wobbled. Because I can't. He seized my face in both hands. I can't even protect myself against them, against what's happening in Prythian. I felt every word as it passed from his mouth and onto my lips, a rush of hot, frantic air. Even if we stood against the Blight, they would hunt you down. She would find a way to kill you. Amarantha? He bristled at the name, but nodded. Who is? When you get home, he cut in. Don't tell anyone the truth about where you were. Let them believe the glamour. Don't tell them who I am. Don't tell them where you stayed. Her spies will be looking for you. I don't understand. I grabbed his forearm and squeezed it tight. Tell me. You have to go home, Feyre. Home? It wasn't my home. It was hell. I want to stay with you, I whispered. My voice breaking. Treaty or no treaty, blight or no blight. He ran a hand over his face. His fingers contracted when they met with his mask. I know. So let me. There's no debate, he snarled, and I glared at him. Don't you understand? He shot to his feet. This was the start of it. Do you want to be here when the Attor returns? Do you want to know what kind of creatures the Attor answers to? Things like the bog, and worse? Let me help you. No! He paced before the bed. Didn't you read between the lines today? I hadn't, but I lifted my chin and crossed my arms. So you're sending me away because I'm useless in a fight? I'm sending you away because it makes me sick thinking about you in their hands. Silence fell, filled only by the sounds of his heavy breathing. He sank onto the bed and pressed the heels of his palms into his eyes. His words echoed through me, melting my anger, turning everything inside me watery and frail. Oh, God, things watery in her again. Ugh. Ugh. I'm gonna switch this. There, I don't know. Maybe this will be better. Yeah, she might just have IBS. Like, I can say, though, that, like, if you have IBS, sometimes stress can do that to you. So, I mean, hey. Yeah. All right. His words, oh God, I'm not reading that line again. This is what she says after that. How long do I have to go away for? He didn't reply. A week? No answer. A month? He shook his head slowly. My upper lip curled, but I forced myself into neutrality. A year? That much time away from him? I don't know. But not forever, right? Even if the blight spread to the spring court again, even if it could shred me apart, I would come back. He brushed the hair from my face. I shook him off. I suppose it'll be easier if I'm gone, I said, looking away from him. Who wants someone around who's so covered in thorns? Thorns? Thorny, prickly, sour, contrary. He leaned forward and kissed me lightly. Not forever, he said, onto my mouth. And though I knew it was a lie, I put my arms around his neck and kissed him. He pulled me onto his lap, holding me tightly against him as his lips parted mine. I became aware of every pore in my body. Sorry. When his tongue entered my mouth. Whew. Just every time I read something like that, I'm sorry, but I just always picture it as being way grosser than it probably is. Just like, ah. Jesus Christ. Okay. Though the horror of Rasan's magic still tore at me, I pushed Tamlin onto the bed, straddling him, pinning him as if it would somehow keep me from leaving, as if it would make time stop entirely. Jesus, it's so difficult. This isn't even a long chapter, and I feel like we're going to be here all day. Okay. His hands rested on my hips, and their heat their heat singed me through the thin silk of my nightgown. My hair fell around our faces like a curtain. I couldn't kiss him fast enough. Yeah, oh my. Where was I here? I couldn't kiss him fast enough, hard enough to express the rushing need within me. Oh my god, okay, Trisha, I didn't even read your... Oh my god, okay. Jesus Christ. I couldn't even read it aloud just there where you typed it, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do. So you're just in time. I am majorly uncomfortable already. They're just about to do it. So welcome. Thank you, Pippa. Thank you. Okay. Here we go. Just remember, I'm doing this for you. He growled softly and deftly flipped us over, spreading me beneath him as he wrenched his lips from my mouth and made a trail of kisses down my neck. The dog just growled. She's not down with that. Didn't growl, she groaned. She's like, no. My entire world constricted to the touch of his lips on my skin. Everything beyond them, everything beyond him, was a void of darkness and moonlight. My back arched as he reached the spot he'd once bitten, and I dragged my hands through his hair, savoring the silken smoothness. Boy, he was conditioner. Do you think he blow dries? Do you think there's a leave-in element? He traced the arch of my hip bones, lingering at the edge of my undergarments. My nightgown had become hitched around my waist, but I didn't care. I hooked my bare legs around his. Wait. Okay, no, sorry. For a second there, I thought she was implying his legs were also bare, and I was like, when did we lose pants? I missed the losing of the pants, but no, I think he's still wearing his pants. I think. The pants were always a glamour, were they? I see. Okay. I suppose if you have that power, why would you bother buying or making clothes or even taking the time to put them on? You could just imagine whatever it is you want to be wearing, and there it is. Okay. I hooked my bare legs around his, running my feet down the hard muscles of his calves. He breathed my name onto my he breathed my name onto my chest. Okay. One of his hands exploring the plane of my torso, rising up to the slope of my breasts. I trembled, anticipating the feel of his hand there, and his mouth found mine again as his fingers stopped just below. His kissing was slower this time, gentler. The fingertips of his other hand slipped beneath the waist of my undergarment. And I sucked in a breath. This song is actually, adding a lot. Yeah. Damn. Oh my. He hesitated at the sound, pulling back slightly. But I bit his lip in a silent command that had him growling into my mouth. With one long claw, he shredded through silk and lace, and my undergarment fell away in pieces. Do you think the word undergarment was used here because, like, she didn't want to say the word panties? Yeah, not my ivory under things. I know, like, they sound like lovely, a lovely pair of underwear, and I would desperately be upset if I lost them, if they were mine. But I suppose she doesn't have an attachment to things, so probably good. Okay, where were we here? Mm-hmm. The claw retracted. The claws don't... I don't know how I feel about the claws coming out in this context. Anyway. The claw retracted, and his kiss deepened as his fingers, oh goodness, slid between my legs. Oh my god. Coaxing and teasing. Oh no. Whew. I ground against his hand, yielding completely to the writhing wildness that had roared alive inside me. Oh boy. And breathed his name onto his skin. He paused again, his fingers retracting. Do his fingers retract too, just like the damn claws? And we're just talking about just like a nub now? Like what? Just using the word retracting so many times. Anyway. But I grabbed him, pulling him further on top of me. I wanted him now. I wanted the barriers of our clothing to vanish. I wanted to taste his sweat. Wanted to become full of him. Stop, I gasped out. "Aye," he said thickly, resting his brow between my breasts as he shuddered. It's okay, it happens to a lot of guys. "If we keep going, I won't be able to stop at all." I sat up, and he watched me, hardly breathing, but I kept my eyes on his, my own breathing becoming steady as I raised my nightgown over my head and tossed it to the floor. Utterly naked before him, I watched his gaze travel to my bare breasts, peaked against the chill night, to my abdomen, to between my thighs. A ravenous, unyielding sort of hunger passed over his face. I bent a leg and slid it to the side. A silent invitation. He let out a low growl, and slowly, with predatory intent, raised his gaze to mine again. Predatory intent? I know what we're saying, but no. The full force of that wild, unrelenting High Lord's power focused solely on me, and I felt the storm contained beneath his skin, so capable of sweeping away everything I was, even in its lessened state. But I could trust him, trust myself to weather that mighty power. I could throw all that I was at him, and he wouldn't balk. "Give me everything," I breathed. "No." He lunged, a beast freed of its tether. Oh my god. We were a tangle of limbs and teeth, and I tore at his clothes until they were on the floor, then tore at his skin until I marked him down his back, his arms. Oh god. His claws were out, but devastatingly oh my god. Don't have those out right now, sir. Those belong in. Those are sharp. That's not safe. Whew. His claws were out, but devastatingly gentle on my hips as he slid down between my thighs and, oh god, and feasted on me. Jesus Christ. Hey, that's okay. You know what? If you're into the claws, that's fine. I don't have a Wolverine kink, but that's cool if you do. I'm just concerned about the safety of her skin. That's all I'm concerned about here. But we know now that he does eat pussy, so that's good, I guess. Not I guess, I mean it is, but jeez. Stopping only after I shuddered and fractured. I was moaning his name when he sheathed himself inside me in a powerful, slow thrust that had me splintering around him. Holy God. Guys. We moved together, unending and wild and burning, and when I went over the edge the next time, he roared and went with me. Okay. All right. I think we're done. I think that's the worst of it. I think I made it. All right, because there's like that little page break there. So I think we're done with the descriptive language. I think we're all right. I did it. I made it. Yay! Oh. See what I mean? Like, it's not that I dislike it, I enjoy it. I just am a child and can't help but react like one. Mentally, I'm like 13, so. I fell asleep in his arms, And when I awoke a few hours later, oh God, we made love again. Jesus Christ. Just careful this time with what you say. I thought it was over. I don't know where this is going. Lazily and intently, a slow-burning smolder to the wildfire of earlier. Once we were both spent, panting and sweat-slicked, we lay in silence for a time, and I breathed in the smell of him, earthy and crisp. I would never be able to capture that, never be able to paint the feel and taste of him, no matter how many times I tried, no matter how many colors I used. Well, I mean, generally painting is a visual medium, so yeah, you probably can't paint a taste. I know that some people, I mean, like, I get what she's saying, but you know what I mean? Tamlin traced idle circles on the plane of my stomach and murmured, "We should sleep. You have a long journey tomorrow." Tomorrow? I sat upright, not at all minding my nakedness, not after he'd seen everything, tasted everything. Jesus Christ. His mouth was a hard line. At dawn. But he sat up in a smooth motion. Please, Feyre. Please. Tamlin had bowed before Rhysand, for my sake. He shifted toward the edge of the bed. Where are you going? He looked over his shoulder at me. If I stay, you won't get any sleep. Stay, I said. I promised to keep my hands to myself. Lie. Such an outright lie. He gave me a half smile that told me he knew it, too, but nestled down, tugging me into his arms. I wrapped an arm around his waist and rested my head in the hollow of his shoulder. He idly stroked my hair. I didn't want to sleep, didn't want to lose a minute with him. But an immense exhaustion was pulling me away from consciousness, until all I knew was the touch of his fingers in my hair and the sounds of his breathing. I was leaving, just when this place had become more than a sanctuary, when the command of the Serial had become a blessing, and Tamlin far, far more than a savior or friend. I was leaving. It could be years until I saw this house again. Years until I smelled his rose garden, until I saw those gold-flecked eyes. Home. This was home. As consciousness left me at last, I thought I heard him speak. His mouse. His mouse? Fuck. Ruined it. Just ruined it, didn't I? His mouth close to my ear. I love you, he whispered, and kissed my brow, thorns and all. He was gone when I awoke, and I was certain I had dreamed it. Okay, that chapter's over. Beautifully romantic, extremely, sexy, but also graphic. Oh. Oh. There goes the dog. Okay, she was done with it too. All right. Now, I don't know what this next chapter brings, but I feel like after that one, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Yes Queen. I enjoyed it too, but it was a lot. Oh, that was very difficult. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna jump right into the next one because holy moly. And then hopefully I can process what just happened as I read through this. But it sucks she has to leave. That's sad. There wasn't much to my packing and farewells. I was somewhat surprised when Alice clothed me in an outfit very unlike my usual garb. frilly and confining, and binding in all the wrong places. Some mortal fashion among the wealthy, no doubt. The dress was made up of layers of pale pink silk, accented with white and blue lace. Alice placed a short, lightweight jacket of white linen on me, and atop my head she angled an absurd little ivory hat, clearly for decoration. I half expected a parasol to go with it. Yes, this sounds very girly, very feminine. I said as much to Alice, who clicked her tongue. "Shouldn't you be giving me a weepy farewell?" I tugged the lace gloves, useless and flimsy. I don't like goodbyes. If I could, I'd just walk out and not say anything. Alice gave me a long look. I don't like them either. I went to the door, but despite myself, I said, I hope you get to be with your nephews again soon. Make the most of your freedom, was all she said. Downstairs, Lucian snorted at the sight of me. Those clothes are enough to convince me I never want to enter the human realm. I'm not sure the human realm would know what to do with you, I said. Lucian's smile was edged, his shoulders tight as he gave a sharp look behind me to where Tam was waiting in front of a gilded carriage. When he turned back, that metal eye narrowed. I thought you were smarter than this. Goodbye to you too, I said. Friend indeed. It wasn't my choice, or my fault that they'd kept the bulk of their conflict from me. Even if I could do nothing against the Blight, or against the creatures, or against Amarantha, whoever she was. Lucian shook his head, his scar stark in the bright sun, and stalked towards Tamlin, despite the High Lord's warning growl. You're not even going to give her a few more days? Just a few? Before you send her back to that human cesspit? Lucian demanded. This isn't up for debate, Tamlin snapped, pointing at the house. I'll see you at lunch. Lucian stared him down for a moment, spat on the ground, and stormed up the stairs. Tamlin didn't reprimand him. I might have thought more on Lucian's words, might have shouted a retort after him. But my chest hollowed out as I faced Tamlin in front of the gilded carriage, my hands sweaty within the gloves. Remember what I told you, he said. I nodded, too busy memorizing the lines of his face to reply. Had he meant what I thought he'd said last night? That he loved me? I shifted, already aching in the little white pumps into which Alice had stuffed my poor feet. The mortal realm remains safe. For you, for your family. I nodded, wondering whether he might have tried to persuade me to leave our territory, to sail south, but understood that I would have refused to be so far from the wall, from him. That going back to my family was as far as I would allow to be sent from his side. My paintings? They're yours, I said, unable to come up with anything better to express how I felt. What it did to me to be sent away, and how terrified I was of the carriage looming behind me. He lifted my chin with a finger. I will see you again. He kissed me, and pulled away too quickly. I swallowed hard, fighting the burning in my eyes. I love you, Feyre. I turned before my vision blurred, but he was immediately there to help me into the opulent carriage. He watched me take my seat through the open door, his face a mask of calm. Ready? No, I wasn't ready. Not after last night. Not after all those months. But I nodded. If Rasand came back, if this Amarantha person was indeed such a threat that I would only be another body for Tamlin to defend, I needed to go. He shut the door, sealing me inside with a click that sounded through me. He leaned through the open door to caress my cheek, and I could have sworn that I felt my heart crack. The footman snapped the whip, Tamlin's fingers brushed my mouth. The carriage jolted as the 6 white horses started into a walk. I bit my lip to keep it from wobbling. Tamlin smiled at me one last time. "I love you," he said, and stepped away. I should say it. I should say those words, but they got stuck in my throat because of what he had to face, because he might not find me again despite his promise, because beneath it all, he was an immortal, and I would grow old and die. And maybe he meant it now, and perhaps last night he had been as altering for him as it had been for me. But I would not become a burden to him. I would not become another weight pressing upon his shoulders. So I said nothing as the carriage moved, and I did not look back as we passed through the manor gates and into the forest beyond. Almost as soon as the carriage entered the woods, the sparkle of magic stuffed itself up my nose, and I was dragged into a deep sleep. I was furious when I jerked awake, wondering why it had been at all necessary, but the air was full of the thunderous clopping of hooves against a flagstone path. Rubbing my eyes, I peered out the window to see a sloping drive lined with conical hedges and irises. I had never been here before. I took in as many details as I could as the carriage came to a stop before a chateau of white marble and emerald roofs, nearly as large as Tamlin's manor. The faces of the approaching servants were unfamiliar, and I kept my face blank as I gripped the footman's hand and stepped out of the carriage. Human. He was utterly human, with his rounded ears, his ruddy face, his clothes. The other servants were human too, all of them restless, not at all like the utter stillness with which the high fae held themselves. Unfinished, graceless creatures of earth and blood. The servants were eyeing me, but keeping back, shrinking away. Did I look so grand then? I straightened at the flurry of motion and color that burst from the front doors. I'd recognized my sisters before they saw me. They approached, smoothing their fine dresses, their brows raising at the gilded carriage. That cracking, caved-in feeling in my chest worsened. Tamlin had said he'd taken care of my family, but this? Nesta spoke first, curtsying low. Elaine followed suit. "Welcome to our home," Nesta said a bit flatly, her eyes on the ground. "Lady," I let out a stark laugh. "Nesta," I said, and she went rigid. I laughed again. "Nesta, don't you recognize your own sister?" Elaine gasped. "Feyre?" She reached for me, but paused. "What of Aunt Ripley, then? Is she dead?" That was the story, I remembered, that I'd gone to care for a long-lost, wealthy aunt. I nodded slowly. Nesta took in my clothes and carriage, the pearls that were woven into her golden brown hair gleaming in the sunlight. "She left you her fortune," Nesta said flatly. It wasn't a question. "Feyre, you should have told us," Elaine said, still gaping. "Oh, how awful. You had to endure losing her all on your own, you poor thing. Father will be devastated that he didn't get to pay his respects." Such simple things. Relatives dying and fortunes being left and paying respect to the dead. And yet, a weight I hadn't realized I'd still been carrying eased. These were the only things that worried them now. "Why are you being so quiet?" Nesta said, keeping her distance. I'd forgotten how cunning her eyes were, how cold. She'd been made differently, from something harder and stronger than bone and blood. She was as different from the humans around us as I had become. "I'm glad to see how well your own fortunes have improved," I managed. "What happened?" The driver, glamour to look human, no mask in sight, began unloading trunks for the footman. I hadn't known Tamlin had sent me off with belongings. Elaine beamed. "Didn't you get our letters?" She didn't remember. Or maybe she'd never actually known then that I wouldn't have been able to read them anyway. When I shook my head, she complained about the uselessness of the post and then said, "Oh, you'll never believe it. Almost a week after you went to care for Aunt Ripley, some stranger appeared at our door and asked Father to invest his money for him. Father was hesitant because the offer was so good, but the stranger insisted, so Father did. He gave us a trunk of gold just for agreeing. Within a month, he doubled the man's investment, and then money started pouring in. And you know what? All those ships we lost were found in Barat, complete with Father's profits." How convenient. Tamlin had done that for them. I ignored the growing hollowness in my chest. "Feyre, you look as dumbfounded as we were," Elaine said, hooking elbows with me. "Come inside, we'll show you the house. We don't have a room decorated for you, because we thought you'd be with poor old Aunt Ripley for months yet, but we have so many bedrooms that you can sleep in a different one each night if you wish." I glanced over my shoulder at Nesta, who watched me with a carefully blank face. So she hadn't married Thomas Mandray after all. "Father will likely faint when he sees you," Elaine babbled on, patting my hand as she escorted me toward the main door. "Oh, maybe he'll throw a ball in your honor, too." Nesta fell into step behind us, a quiet, stalking presence. I didn't want to know what she was thinking. I wasn't certain whether I should be furious or relieved that they'd gotten on so well without me, and whether Nesta was wondering the same. Horses clopped, and the carriage began ambling down the driveway, away from me, back to my true home, back to Tamlin. It took all my will to keep from running after it. He had said he loved me, and I'd felt the truth of it with our lovemaking, and he sent me away to keep me safe. He'd freed me from the treaty to keep me safe, because whatever storm was about to break in Prithian was brutal enough that even a High Lord couldn't stand against it. I had to stay. It was wise to stay here, but I couldn't fight the sensation. Like a darkening shadow within me that I'd made a very, very big mistake in leaving, no matter Tamlin's orders. "Stay with the High Lord," the Suriel had said. Its only command. I shoved the thought from my mind as my father wept at the sight of me and did indeed order a ball in my honor. And though I knew that the promise I had once made to my mother was fulfilled, though I knew that I truly was free of it and that my family was forever cared for, that growing, lengthening shadow blanketed my heart. And that's the end of that chapter. So she's home now, and her family's very rich and very fancy, and that's good for them. But she still seems quite upset. So yeah, this one's quite short, so yeah, we can do the next one too. Let's update the chapter count though. So it's looking like we lost a couple people. I don't know who's popped out for the night, but I miss whoever it is. So there's not very many of you that come hang out with me for this. I miss you. That's okay. Let's move on to chapter 29. Inventing stories about my time with Aunt Ripley required minimal effort. I read to her daily. Ow. She instructed me on deportment from her bedside, and I nursed her until she died in her sleep 2 weeks ago, leaving her fortune to me. And what a tremendous fortune it was. The trunks that accompanied me hadn't contained just clothing. Several of them had been filled with gold and jewels. Not cut jewels either, but enormous raw jewels that would pay for 1,000 estimates. That would pay for 1,000 estates. Estimates, what am I talking about? My father was currently taking inventory of those jewels. He'd holed himself up in the office that overlooked the garden in which I was sitting beside Elaine in the grass. Through the window, I spied my father hunched over his desk, a little scale before him as he weighed an uncut ruby the size of a duck's egg. He was clear-eyed again and moved with a sense of purpose, of vibrancy that I hadn't seen since before the downfall. Even his limp was improved, made miraculously better by some tonic and a salve a strange passer a strange passing healer had given him for free. I would have been forever grateful to Tamlin for that kindness alone. Gone were his hunched shoulders and downcast, misty eyes. My father smiled freely, laughed readily, and doted on Elaine, who in turn doted on him. Nesta, though, had been quiet and watchful, only giving Elaine answers not longer than a word or two. These bulbs, Elaine said, pointing with a gloved hand to a cluster of purple and white flowers, came all the way from the tulip fields of the continent. Father promised that next spring he'll take me to see them. He claims that for mile after mile there's nothing but these flowers. She patted the rich, dark soil. The little garden beneath the window was hers. Every bloom and shrub had been picked and planted by her hand. She would allow no one else to care for it. Even the weeding and watering she did on her own. Though the servants did help her carry over the heavy watering cans, she admitted. She would have marveled, likely wept, at the gardens I'd become so accustomed to, at the flowers in perpetual bloom at the spring court. "You should come with me," Elaine went on. "Nesta won't go because she said she doesn't want to risk the sea crossing. But you and I, oh, we'd have fun, wouldn't we?" I glanced sidelong at her. My sister was beaming, content. Prettier than I'd ever seen her, even in her simple muslin gardening dress. Her cheeks were flushed beneath her large floppy hat. I think I'd like to see the continent," I said. And it was true, I realized. There was so much of the world that I hadn't seen, hadn't ever thought about visiting, hadn't ever been able to dream of visiting. "I'm surprised you're so eager to go next spring," I said. "Isn't that right in the middle of the season?" The socialite season, which had ended a few weeks ago, apparently, full of parties and balls and luncheons and gossip. Elaine had told me all about it at dinner the night before, hardly noticing that it was an effort for me to get down my food. So much of it was the same. The meat, the bread, the vegetables, and yet it was ash in my mouth compared to what I'd consumed in Prithian. "And I'm surprised you don't have a line of suitors at the door, begging for your hand." Okay, Tricia says, after Feyre's story is over, there's another book from Nesta's perspective. Fully living in Nesta's head now is weird. I can imagine that it's strange. Yeah, she seems like kind of a jerk. So... Elaine flushed, but plunged her little shovel into the ground to dig out a weed. "Yes, well, there will always be other seasons. Nesta won't tell you, but this season was somewhat strange." "In what way?" She shrugged her slim shoulders. "People acted as if we'd all just been ill for 8 years, or had gone away to some distant country. Not that we'd been a few villages over in that cottage. You'd think we dreamed it all up. What happened to us over those years? No one said a word about it." "Did you think they would?" "If we were as rich as this house suggested, there were surely plenty of families willing to overlook the strain of our poverty." "No, but it made me wish for those years again, even with the hunger and the cold. This house feels so big sometimes, and Father is always busy, and Nesta..." She looked over her shoulder to where my eldest sister stood by a gnarled mulberry tree, looking out over the flat expanse of our lands. She'd barely spoken to me the night before, and not at all during breakfast. I'd been surprised when she joined us outside, even if she stayed by the tree the whole time. "Nesta didn't finish the season. She wouldn't tell me why. She began refusing every invitation. She hardly talks to anyone, and I feel wretched when my friends pay a visit because she makes them so uncomfortable when she stares at them in that way of hers." Elaine sighed. "Maybe you could talk to her." I contemplated telling Elaine that Nesta and I hadn't had a civil conversation in years. But then Elaine added, "She went to see you, you know." I blinked, my blood going a bit cold. "What?" "Well, she was gone for only about a week, and she said that her carriage broke down not halfway there, and it was easier to come back. But she wouldn't know, since you never got any of our letters, She looked over at Nesta, standing so still under the branches, the summer breeze rustling the skirts of her dress. Had she gone to see me, only to be turned back by whatever glamour magic Tamlin had cast on her? I turned back to the garden and caught Elaine staring at me. What? Elaine shook her head and went back to weeding. You just look so different. You sound so different, too. Indeed, I hadn't quite believed my eyes when I'd passed a hall mirror last night. My face was still the same, but there was a... Oh God, guys, come on. She's about to say a thing that I'm concerned about the implication. Indeed, I hadn't quite believed my eyes when I passed the hall mirror last night. My face was still the same, but there was a glow about me. A kind of shimmering light that was nearly undetectable. So it's either fairy magic or she's pregnant. Fuck. Hate that. Sorry. I knew without a doubt that it was because of my time in Prithian that all that magic had somehow rubbed off on me. I dreaded the day it would forever fade. Right? Oh no. Concerned. Something happened at Aunt Ripley's house, Elaine said. Did you meet someone? I shrugged and yanked at a weed nearby. Just good food and rest. Days passed. The shadow within me didn't lighten, and even the thought of painting was abhorrent. Instead, I spent most of my time with Elaine in her little garden. I wasn't content to listen to her talk about every bud and bloom, about her plans to start another garden by the greenhouse. Perhaps a vegetable garden, if she could learn enough about it over the next few months. She'd come alive here, and her joy was infectious. There wasn't a servant or gardener who didn't smile at her, and even the brusque head cook found excuses to bring her plates of cookies and tarts at various points in the day. I marveled at it, actually, that those years of poverty hadn't stripped away that light from Elaine. Perhaps, buried in it all, but she was generous, loving, and kind. A woman I found myself proud to know, to call sister. My father finished counting my jewels and gold. I was an extraordinarily wealthy woman. I invested a small percentage of it in his business, and when I looked at the remaining behemoth sum, I had him draw me up several bags of money and set out. The manor was only 3 miles from our run-down cottage, and the road was familiar. I didn't mind when my hem became coated in mud from the sodden path. I savored hearing the wind in the trees and the sighing of the high grasses. If I drifted far enough into my memories, I could imagine myself walking alongside Tamlin through his woods. I had no reason to believe that I would see him anytime soon, but I went to bed each night praying that I'd awaken to find myself in his manor, or that I'd receive a message summoning me to his side. Even worse than my disappointment that no such thing had happened was the creeping, nagging fear that he was in danger, that Amarantha, whoever she was, would somehow hurt him. I love you. I could almost hear the words, almost hear him saying them, could almost see the sunlight glinting in his golden hair and the dazzling green of his eyes. I could almost feel his body pressed against mine, his fingers playing along my skin. I reached a bend in the road, and I could have navigated it in the dark, and there it was. So small, the cottage had been so small. Elaine's old flower garden was a wild tangle of weeds and blooms, and the and the ward markings were still etched on the stone threshold. The front door, shattered and broken the last time I'd seen it, had been replaced, but one of the circular window panes had become cracked. The interior was dark, the land undisturbed. I traced the invisible path I'd taken across the tall grass every morning from our front door over the road, and then across the rolling field all the way to that line of trees. The forest, my forest. It had seemed so terrifying once, so lethal and hungry and brutal, and now it just seemed plain, ordinary. I gazed again at that sad, dark house. place that had been a prison. Elaine had said she missed it, and I wondered what she saw when she looked at the cottage. If she beheld not a prison but a shelter from a world that had possessed so little good. But she tried to find it anyway, even if it had seemed foolish and useless to me. She had looked at that cottage with hope. I had looked at it with nothing but hatred. And I knew which one of us had been stronger. Excuse me. That's chapter 29. Oh, this is quite a few little short chapters here. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. That was either I'm reading too much into it or that was an intense implication there. And I'm nervous. But I guess we'll have to see. Wait and see. But yeah, we're still like... still got a little bit to go. So who knows? Why does your baby have a mask? I don't know. That's a good question though, because like if... Would it? I don't think it would. Because it's not a genetic thing. It's like a magic fused on thing. So it's like cosmetic surgery almost, right? Like, I don't know. It's not like in their DNA, I don't think, but I don't know. Magic is weird, man. What can I say? Yeah, it would look fucking weird though. And like, would it grow with its face or no? Oh yeah, a toddler with fangs and claws is terrible. That sounds like a terrible thing. Oh god, you don't think... I don't think they do like the fucking Twilight baby thing where it grows fast and it's like super smart. I hate that. I hated it in Twilight. I hated it in Dune. I just hate it. Hyper intelligent children are terrifying and awful. I don't like it. I don't like regular children really though anyway. So there you go. There you go. This is just a brief reminder as we head into chapter 30 here that even though I believe at least everybody in the chat, but maybe if there's anybody popping in later on, that a follow is free and would really help me out. I am very, very close to the 50 required to get to affiliate level. Not that it's like the biggest deal in the world, but I'm pretty excited about it. I am goal oriented, so if I could just get those last few, I would feel very accomplished. So yeah, if you're watching this later, or if you're lurking in chat right now, and whatever, just like I said, follow is free, and I'd really appreciate it. And if you feel like donating, the link is in chat. I always appreciate it. There's no specific incentive for doing it. But it does make doing this a lot easier. Oh, look at that. It just posted itself. Perfect timing. But yeah, no, it just, it makes everything that I went through 2 chapters ago worth it. Not that that wasn't fun, but woo. Yeah. So I always appreciate it a lot. And I love all of you very much anyway, even if you can't. But yeah, and you make sure that you invite people to come and watch with us. You can always catch up. The YouTube is posted in the About Me section on my bio now. I've updated that, and yeah. So all the backlog from chapter 1 all the way through is done. It's all uploaded, so you can catch up on every single week, even if you can't be here in person. So that's always good too.
Okay.
Why does the virtual assistant, I won't say her name, always think I'm calling on her? I don't need her help with anything right now. sure there's a way to turn it off. I don't know. Oh, I did want to show some of you because I know that like a few of you were like interested in this. But I've been working on this lingerie set, which I did not wear on the Valentine's Day stream because I had glue drying on it. But I did use it as a display. But I've gotten further on it and I just kind of want to show it off a little bit. So I'm going to pull it over here closer. One sec. There we go. Okay, so this I haven't done anything with yet, but under here, this is all stoned now. You can kind of see some of the sparkly shinies. Right? And those are all Swarovski crystals, which are, you cannot get those anymore. They have decided they're not going to sell them to consumers any longer. So they're all old stock that I just had hanging out. So I'm very happy I had just enough. I have a few extras in case something falls off, but the stoning is like the light stoning I'm doing is done. And then this used to be just like a plain pink string that was corseted on here kind of. But this is actually woven through with like a gold and pink elastic that's braided with some like satin leaf ribbon. So I just worked out, this is what I prefer because the other side, I tried it with just the pink string and some like iridescent beads, and I just didn't like that as much. So I'm not doing that. And then I am hand beading some fringe along the bottom. That's kind of difficult to see from here, but like from a distance, it'll sparkle a whole lot and be really fun and shimmy shaky, which will be cute. I'm going to do it along the bottoms as well. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be like a really cute springtime themed act. I haven't picked a song or done any choreography for it yet. I'm doing one of those like you make the costume first and then you come up with the rest. Okay, Trisha. I hope you had fun though. Like, I mean, looking at the base that you made, it looks like you like took your time with it and you put the effort in, and that's really good. Like, especially the first few times, it can take a while, especially if you're trying to do it like right and you want to take your time. So, and it's been a rough week. I'm so sorry. Oh no. Well, I hope that that all the streams that have been going on for the 5 days of horny or whatever have helped you out with your rough week, and I hope that that the pasty making was fun and it gives you a little bit of an activity to work on when you're not occupied with whatever it is. Yeah, it's been your only me time. Yeah, I hear that. I've been in that place before. Yep. Right, because it was your partner who was sick in the hospital, wasn't it? I'm sorry not to like bring it up, but I believe you mentioned that, and I hope that they're feeling better if it was you, because I believe it was. Yes, it was you. Okay, I wasn't wrong. Yeah, no. So yeah, I hope. Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's rough. That's hard. Oh no, puppy. Oh. Well, you make sure you take care of yourself too. And I'm sure that they all really appreciate all of the time and the care that you're giving them. That sucks. I'm sorry though. No, I really feel for you for that. They better, yeah. They better. No, I'm sure they do. I mean, like, pups can't tell you, but your partner definitely can. And I'm sure he has mentioned it and will again, hopefully. Just say, you remember this. Because then when you get sick, you get treated like a queen. Even when you're not, but like, especially if you get sick. All right, guys, let's get into chapter 30 here. It's fairly short too, so depending on how long the next one is, we might even be able to do 31, and then we'll see. Why am I getting all these notifications? I clearly turned the thing off and said no. All right, chapter 30. I had one task left to do before I returned to my father's manor. The villagers who had once sneered at or ignored me instead gaped now, and a few stepped into my path to ask about my aunt, my fortune, on and on. I firmly but politely refused to fall into conversation with them, to give them anything to gossip over. But it still took me so long to reach the poor part of our village that I was fully drained by the time I knocked on the first dilapidated door. The impoverished of our village didn't ask questions when I handed them the little bags of silver and gold. They tried to refuse, some of them not even recognizing me, but I left the money anyway. It was the least I could do. As I walked back to my father's manor, I passed Thomas Mandre and his cronies lurking by the village fountain. Oh, he's got cronies. Ugh. Chatting about some house that had burned down with its family trapped inside a week before, and whether there was anything to loot from it. Oh, God. He gave me a too long look, his eyes roving freely over my body, with a half smile I'd seen him give to the village girls 100 times before. Why had Nesta changed her mind? I just stared him down and continued along. Well, I know I should change her mind. Sounds like a jerk. Oh, they'd be perfect for each other. They're both dicks. I was almost out of town when a woman's laugh flitted over the stones, and I turned a corner to come face to face with Isaac Hale and a pretty, plump young woman who could only be his new wife. Oh, you run into your ex and their new person, and it's like, ugh, yuck. Just yuck. Where was I here? They were arm in arm, both smiling, both lit up from within. His smile faltered as he beheld me. Human. He seemed so human, with his gangly limbs, his simple handsomeness. But that smile he'd had moments before had transformed him into something more. His wife looked between us, perhaps a bit nervously, as if whatever she felt for him, the love I'd already seen shining, was so new, so unexpected, that she was still worried it would vanish. Carefully, Isaac inclined his head to me in greeting. He'd been a boy when I left, and yet this person who now approached me, whatever had blossomed with his wife, whatever was between them, it had made him into a man. Nothing. There was nothing in my chest, my soul, for him beyond a vague sense of gratitude. A few more steps had us passing each other. I smiled broadly at him, at them both, and bowed my head, wishing them well with my entire heart. The ball my father was throwing in my honor was in 2 days, and the house was already a flurry of activity. Such money being thrown away on things we'd never dreamed of having again, even for a moment. I would have begged him not to host it, but Elaine had taken charge of planning and finding me a last-minute dress, and it would only be for an evening. An evening of enduring the people who had shunned us and let us starve for years. The sun was near to setting as I stopped my work for the day, digging out a new square of earth for Elaine's next garden. The gardeners had been slightly horrified that another one of us had taken up the activity, as if we'd soon be doing all their work ourselves and would get rid of them. I reassured them I had no green thumb and just wanted something to do with my day. But I hadn't yet figured out what I would be doing with my week, or my month, or anything after that. If there was indeed a surge in the blight happening over the wall, if that Amarantha woman was sending out creatures to take advantage of it, it was hard not to dwell on that shadow in my heart, the shadow that trailed my every step. I hadn't felt like painting since I'd arrived, and that place inside me where all those colors and shapes and lights had come from had become still and quiet and dull. Soon, I told myself, soon I would purchase some paints and start again. I slid the shovel into the ground and set my foot atop it, resting for a moment. Perhaps the gardeners had just been horrified by the tunic and pants I'd scrounged up. One of them had even gone running to fetch me one of those big floppy hats that Elaine wore. I lost my place. Anyway, Yas Queen commented, so I feel like Amarantha is going to be hunting her. Welcome home ball is going to be a problem. Yeah. Yep. No, like a big party is never a good idea when you know there's somebody who like wants to get you. It's just like, oh, this is a plot trap. It's like, oh, and prom's tomorrow. Like, if there's a killer in town, you cancel prom, you know? Where are we here? Okay. One of them had even gone running to fetch me one of those big floppy hats that Elaine wore. I wore it for their sake. My skin had already become tan and freckled from months roaming the Springcourt lands. I glanced at my hands, clutching the top of the shovel, calloused and flecked with scars, arcs of dirt under my nails. They'd surely be horrified when they beheld me splattered with paint. Even if you washed them, there'd be no hiding it, Nesta said behind me, coming over from that tree she liked to sit by. To fit in, you'd have to wear gloves and never take them off. She wore a simple, pale, lavender muslin gown, her hair half up and billowing behind her in a sheet of golden brown. Beautiful, imperious, still as one of the High Fae. Maybe I don't want to fit in with your social circles, I said, turning back to the shovel. Then why are you bothering to stay here? A sharp, cold question. I plunged the shovel deeper, my arms and back straining as I heaved up a pile of dark soil and grass. It's my home, isn't it? No, it's not, she said flatly. I slammed the shovel back into the earth. I think your home is somewhere very far away. I paused. I left the shovel in the ground and slowly turned to face her. Aunt Ripley's house. There is no Aunt Ripley. Nesta reached into her pocket and tossed something onto the upturned earth. So, you're back. Where did you have to pop out? I think I missed it. I can catch you up. Cause yeah, I mean, I hope you didn't miss the sexy part, cause that was woo. Oh, you went to yoga. Yoga's good. That's good. I'm glad you were there. So basically, just in case there was a sexy thing, then he sent her home. So she's back with her sisters and her father now, and they're very rich. That's what you need to know. Comment go in chat if you just desperately don't understand anything, but hang out. Okay, here we go. Oh, and her sister, Nesta, the mean one, she's right now accusing her of something. There is no Aunt Ripley. Nesta reached into her pocket and tossed something onto the churned up earth. It was a chunk of wood, as if it had been ripped from something. Painted on its smooth surface was a pretty tangle of vines and foxglove. Foxglove painted in the wrong shade of blue. My breath hitched. All this time, all these months, your beast's little trick didn't work on me, she said with quiet steel. Apparently, an iron will is all it takes to keep a glamour from digging in, so I had to watch as Father and Elaine went from sobbing hysterics into nothing. I had to listen to them talk about how lucky it was for you to be taken to some made-up aunt's house, how some winter wind had shattered our door, and I thought I'd gone mad. And I thought I'd gone mad, but every time I did, I would look at that painted part of the table, then at the claw marks further down, and no, it wasn't in my head. Yeah, that'd be fucking weird. It's like the ultimate gaslight. I never heard of a glamour not working, but Nesta's mind was so entirely her own. She had put up such strong walls of steel and iron and ash wood that even a High Lord's magic couldn't pierce them. Oh, that's some not like the other girl shit. Elaine said you went to visit me, though? That you tried? Nesta snorted, her face grave and full of that long, simmering anger that she could never master. He stole you away into the night, claiming some nonsense about the treaty, and then everything went on as if it had never happened. It wasn't right. None of it was right. My hands slackened at my sides. You went after me. You went after me. To Prithian. I got to the wall. I couldn't find a way through. I raised a shaking hand to my throat. You trekked 2 days there and 2 days back through the winter woods? She shrugged, looking at the sliver she'd pried from the table. I hired that mercenary from town to bring me a week after you were taken, with the money from your pelt. She was the only one who seemed like she would believe me. You did that for me? Nesta's eyes, my eyes, our mother's eyes, met mine. It wasn't right, she said again. Tamlin had been wrong when we discussed whether my father would have ever come after me. He didn't possess the courage, the anger. If anything, he would have hired someone to do it for him. But Nesta had gone with that mercenary. My hateful, cold sister had been willing to brave Prithian to rescue me. What happened to Thomas Mandray? I asked, the words strangled. I realized he wouldn't have gone with me to save you from Prithian. And for her, with that raging, unrelenting heart, it would have been a line in the sand. I looked at my sister. I really looked at her. This woman who couldn't stomach the sycophants who now surrounded her, who had never spent a day in the forest but had gone into wolf territory, who had shrouded the loss of our mother, then our downfall, in icy rage and bitterness. Not now, Siri. In icy rage and bitterness. Why is that the word? I'm probably hitting the button on my headphone. Honestly, probably what I'm doing. Because the anger had been a lifeline, the cruelty a release. Yeah, I know, she does, don't she? She does. She's bitter. People asking her shit all day and half the time they don't listen. But she had cared. Beneath it, she had cared, and perhaps loved more fiercely than I could comprehend, more deeply and loyally. Thomas never deserved you anyway, I said softly. My sister didn't smile, but a light shone in her blue-gray eyes. Tell me everything that happened, she said. An order, not a request. So I did. And when I finished my story, Nesta merely stared at me for a long while, before asking me to teach her how to paint. Okay. That's what she gets from that. That whole story, and she's like, my sister's a talented artist. I should get lessons. Teaching Nesta to paint was about as pleasant as I had expected it to be, but at least it provided an excuse for us to avoid the busier parts of the house, which became more and more chaotic as my ball drew near. Supplies were easy enough to come by, but explaining how I painted, convincing Nesta to express what was in her mind, her heart, at the very least she repeated my brushstrokes with a precise and solid hand. Yeah, she's not, she's not that kind of artist. That's just how Fair relates. Like Alden says, everything is like anime. True. Everything is like paint. I'm sure I do many things like that all the time. Everybody has it. When we emerged from the quiet room, we'd commandeered with There we go. I put a period in there where there was not one. What a terrible month that would be. When we emerged from the quiet room we'd commandeered, both of us splattered in paint and smeared with charcoal, the chateau was finishing up its preparations. Colored glass lanterns lined the long drive, and inside wreaths and garlands of every flower and color decorated every rail, every surface, every archway. Beautiful. Elaine had selected each flower herself and instructed the staff where to put them. Nesta and I slipped up the stairs, but as we reached the landing, my father and Elaine appeared below, arm in arm. Nesta's face tightened. My father murmured his praises to Elaine, who beamed at him and rested her head on his shoulder, and I was happy for them, for the comfort and ease of their lifestyle, for the contentment on both my father's and my sister's faces. Yes, they had their small sorrows. Both of them seemed so relaxed. Nesta walked down the hall, and I followed her. There are days, Nesta said as she paused in front of the door to her room across from mine, when I went to ask him if he remembers the years he almost let us starve to death. You spent every copper I could get, too, I reminded her. I knew you could always get more, and if you couldn't, then I wanted to see if he would ever try to do it himself, instead of carving those bits of wood. If he would actually go out and fight for us. I couldn't take care of us, not the way you did. I hated you for that. But I hated him more. I still do. Does he know? He's always known I hate him, even before we became poor. He let Mother die. He had a fleet of ships at his disposal to sail across the world for a cure, or he could have hired men to go into Prithian and beg them for help, but he let her waste away. He loved her. He grieved for her. I didn't know what the truth was. Perhaps both. He let her die. You would have gone to the ends of the earth to save your High Lord. My chest hollowed out again. But I merely said, yes, I would have, and slipped inside my room to get ready. Okay, so there's some daddy issues there. I can't say I don't blame her. So chapter 31 is fairly short. I think we can do that one. And then I think that'll be it for the night. So I think this is the last chapter. Oh, she makes a comment like that about a guy in the other book. Oh my god, yeah, no, like, I completely understand that. That I relate to deeply. I totally get it. My, like, upper lip's getting itchy again, too, so probably a good time for us to be almost done. Maybe it's my microphone. Chapter 31. Okay. The ball was a blur of waltzing and preening, of bejeweled aristos, of wine and toasts in my honor. Like he's the kind of man who would send a fleet of ships to all the corners of Manicure. That's what she cares about so much. It's just like, would he send ships out? Would he save my life? That's just like I'm thinking, like, would they go right wing? Would they become corrupted? Hopefully not. Yeah, like if it's a series you like and speed dating with her. Okay, so you have a fleet of ships. But yeah, no, if it's a series you like, and especially if you're like still in it, but you've like moved on to a different part of the story with like maybe a different narrator, it is cool to go back and like re-listen to the beginning and go through it again, because then you get a new perspective on it, which is nice. Yeah, well, speed dating. Ugh. It would suck. Especially if she was there. I'm sorry. Maybe she gets better, but right now I'm like, I don't know. Unfortunately, I probably am more like her than I like to admit. Okay. I lingered at Nesta's side because she seemed to do a good job of scaring off the two curious suitors who wanted to know more about my fortune. You're seeing so many hints. Oh no. Oh, okay. But I tried to smile, if only for Elaine, who flitted about the room, personally greeting each guest and dancing with all their important sons. But I kept thinking about what Nesta had said, about saving Tamlin. I'd known something was wrong. I'd known he was in trouble, not just with the blight on Prithium, but also that the forces gathering to destroy him were deadly, and yet I'd stopped looking for answers, stopped fighting it. Glad, so selfishly glad, to be able to set down that savage, wild part of me that only survived hour to hour. I'd let him send me home. I hadn't tried harder to piece together the information I'd gathered about the blight or Amarantha. I hadn't tried to save him. I hadn't even told him I loved him. And Lucian had known it too, and shown it in his bitter words on my last day. His disappointment in me. 2 a.m, and yet the party was showing no signs of slowing. My father held court with several other merchants and aristos. Aristo, blah, blah, blah. This word is always, it sits weird in my mouth. Aristo men to whom I had been introduced, but whose names I'd instantly forgotten. Elaine was laughing among a circle of beautiful friends, flushed and brilliant. Nesta had silently left at midnight, and I didn't bother to say goodbye as I finally slipped upstairs. The following afternoon, bleary-eyed and quiet, we all gathered at the lunch table. I thanked my sister and father for the party, and dodged my father's inquiries regarding whether any of his friends' sons had caught my eye. Dad. The summer heat had arrived, and I propped my chin on a fist as I fanned myself. I'd slept fitfully in the night last night. It was never too hot or too cold at Tamlin's estate. It was always perfect in the other place. Me. Sorry. She's just kind of whiny. A little bit. My boy had central air. I'm thinking of buying the Bedore land, my father was saying to Elaine, who was the only one of us listening to him. I heard a rumor it'll go up for sale soon, since none of the family survived, and it would be a good investment property. Perhaps one of you girls might build a house on it when you're ready. Elaine nodded interestedly, but I blinked. What happened to the Bedores? Oh, it was awful, Elaine said. Their house burned down, and everyone died. Well, they couldn't find Claire's body, but... She looked down at her plate. It happened in the dead of night. The family, their servants, everyone. The day before you came home to us, actually. Claire Bedore, I said slowly. Our friend, remember? Elaine said. I nodded, feeling Nesta's eyes on me. No, it couldn't be possible. It had to be a coincidence. Had to be a coincidence. Because the alternative... I had given that name to Rasand. And he had not forgotten it. My stomach turned over, and I fought against the nausea that roiled within me. Feyre? My father asked. I put a shaking hand over my eyes, breathing in. What had happened? Not just at the Bedores, but at home, in Prythian. Feyre, my father said again, and Nesta hissed at him. Quiet! I pushed back against the guilt, the disgust and terror. I had to get answers, had to know if it had been a coincidence, or if I might yet be able to save Claire. And if something had happened here, in the mortal realm, then the Spring Court, then those creatures Tamlin had been so frightened of, the Blight had infected magic, their lands, fairies. They had come over the wall and left no trace behind. I lowered my hand and looked at Nesta. You must listen very carefully, I said to her, swallowing hard. Everything I have told you must remain a secret. You do not come looking for me. You do not speak my name again to anyone. What are you talking about, Feyre? My father gaped at me from the end of the table. Elaine glanced between us, shifting in her seat. But Nesta held my gaze, unflinching. I think something very bad might be happening in Prythian, I said softly. I'd never learned what warning signs Tamlin had instilled in their glamours to prod my family to run, but I wasn't going to risk relying solely on them. Not when Claire had been taken, her family murdered, because of me. There he is! Bile burned in my throat. Prythian, my father and Elaine blurted. But Nesta held up a hand to silence them. I went on. If you won't leave, then hire guards. Hire scouts to watch the wall, the forest, the village too. I rose from my seat. The first sign of danger, the first rumor you hear of the wall being breached, or even something being strange, you get on a ship and go. You sail far away, as far south as you can get, to someplace the fairies would never desire. Oh, my watch is telling me I have to stand up, but I'm ignoring it. My father and Elaine began blinking, as if clearing some fog from their minds, as if emerging from a deep sleep. But Nesta followed me into the hall, up the stairs. The Bedores, I said. That was meant to be us. But you gave them a fake name. Those wicked fairies who threatened your High Lord? I nodded. I could see the plans calculating in her eyes. Is there going to be an invasion? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I was told there was a kind of sickness that had made their powers weaken or go wild, a blight on the land that had damaged the safety of their borders and could kill people if it struck badly enough. They said it was surging again, on the move. The last I heard, it wasn't near enough to harm our lands. But if the Spring Court is about to fall, then the blight has to be getting close, and Tamlin was one of the last bastions keeping the other courts in check, the deadly courts, and I think he's in danger. I entered my room and began peeling off my gown. My sister helped me, then opened the wardrobe to pull out a heavy tunic and pants and boots. I slipped into them and was braiding back my hair when she said, "We don't need you here, Feyre. Do not look back." I tugged on my boots and went for the hunting knives I discreetly acquired while here. "Father once told you to never come back," Nesta said. "And I'm telling you now. We can take care of ourselves." Once I might have thought it was an insult, but now I understood. Understood what a gift she was offering me. I sheathed the knives at my side and slung a quiver of arrows across my back. None of them ash, before scooping up my bow. "They can lie," I said, giving her information I hoped she would never need. "Fairies can lie, and iron doesn't bother them one bit, but ash wood, that seems to work. Take my money and buy a damned grove of it for Elaine to tend." Nesta shook her head, clutching her wrist, the bracelet of iron still there. "What do you think you can even do to help? He's a high lord. You're just a human." That wasn't an insult either, a question from a coolly calculating mind. "I don't care," I admitted, at the door now, which I flung open. "But I've got to try." Nesta remained in my room. She would not say goodbye. She hated farewells as much as I did. But I turned to my sister and said, "There is a better world, Nesta. There is a better world out there, waiting for you to find it. And if I ever get the chance, if things are ever better, safer, I will find you again." It was all I could offer her. But Nesta squared her shoulders. "Don't bother. I don't think I'd be particularly fond of fairies." I raised a brow. She went on with a slight shrug. "Try to send word once it's safe. And if it ever is, Father and Elaine can have this place. I think I'd like to see what else is out there. What a woman might do with a fortune and a good name." No limits, I thought. There were no limits to what Nesta might do, what she might make of herself once she found a place to call her own. I prayed I would be lucky enough to someday see it. Elaine, to my surprise, had a horse, a satchel of food, and supplies ready when I hurried down the stairs. My father was nowhere in sight, but Elaine threw her arms around me and, holding tightly, said, I remember all of it now." "Okay." I don't know why, but she remembers. I wrapped my arms around her. "Be on your guard, all of you." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I would have liked to see the continent with you, Feyre." I smiled at my sister, memorizing her lovely face, and wiped her tears away. "Maybe someday," I said, another promise that I'd be lucky to keep. Elaine was still crying as I spurred my horse and galloped down the drive. I didn't have it in me to say goodbye to my father once more. I rode all day and stopped only when it was too dark for me to see. Due north, that's where I would start and go until I hit the wall. I had to get back, had to see what had happened, had to tell Tamlin everything that was in my heart before it was too late. I rode all of the second day, slept fitfully, and was off before first light. On and on, through the summer forest, lush and dense and humming, until an absolute silence fell. I slowed my horse to a careful walk and scanned the brush and trees ahead for any sign, any ripple. There was nothing. Nothing. And then my horse bucked and shook her head, and it was all I could do to stay in the saddle as she refused to go forward. But still, there was nothing. No marker. Yet when I dismounted, hardly breathing as I put a hand out, I found that I could not pass. There, cleaving through the forest, was an invisible wall. But the fairies came and went through it, through holes, rumor claimed. So I led my horse down the line, tapping the wall every so often to make sure I hadn't veered away. It took me 2 days, and the night between them was more terrifying than any I'd experienced at the Spring Court. 2 days before I spied the mossy stones placed across from each other, a faint whorl carved into them both. A gate. This time, when I mounted my horse and steered her between them, she obeyed. Magic stung my nostrils, zapping until my horse bucked again, but we were there. I knew these trees. I rode in silence, an arrow nocked and ready, the threats lurking in the forest far greater than those in the woods I'd just left. Tamlin might be furious. He might command me to turn around and go home. But I would tell him that I was going to help, tell him that I loved him and would fight for him however I could, even if I had to tie him down to make him listen. I became so intent on contemplating how I might convince him not to start roaring that I didn't immediately notice the quiet, how the birds didn't sing, even as I drew closer to the manor itself, how the hedges of the estate looked in need of a trim. By the time I reached the gates, my mouth had gone dry. The gates were open, but the iron had been bent out of shape, as if mighty hands had wrenched them apart. Every step of the horse's hooves was too loud on the gravel path, and my stomach dropped further when I beheld the wide open front doors. One of them hung at an angle, ripped off its top hinge. I dismounted, arrows still at the ready, but there was no need. Empty. It was utterly empty here, like a tomb. "Tam," I cried. I bounded up the front steps and into the house. I rushed inside, swearing as I slid on a piece of broken porcelain, the remnants of a vase. Slowly, I turned to the front hall. It looked as if an army had marched through. Tapestries hung in shreds, the marble banister was fractured, and the chandeliers lay broken on the ground, reduced to mounds of shattered crystal. "Tamlin!" I shouted. Nothing. The windows had all been blown out. "Lucian?" No one answered. "Tam!" My voice echoed through the house, mocking me. Alone in the wreckage of the manor, I sank to my knees. He was gone. And that's chapter 31. Oof. So once again, kind of a cliffhanger ending for us. Because I don't know where he is. Yeah, I know, right? Rough. So I don't know. So I think she's going to have to go find this mountain place. This under the mountain place. Which, if it were me, I would start with figuring out where the night court is, which she can... Night court! She can go see that on the map. Or she can give Moose a call. The only character name I remember. But yeah, that would be where I would start. Unless the map has more information about where the mountain is. Because that would be where I would think to go. I don't know. But yeah, it's bad. It's very bad. I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, we had a spicy beginning and a cliffhanger ending. So Sunday we'll have more. Oh, thank you, Katrisha. The map specifically didn't have any Night Court landmarks. Well, then you go, I guess, where is the void? Because the void is that. Embrace the void. Go into the void. The void will take you. Yeah, ride until shit seems shady. Ride till it gets dark. But yeah, we're on a rescue mission now. Somebody's dead. We don't know who. My prediction is that at a minimum, one of the people that we got to know from the manor is dead. So that likely not Tamlin, because that would be a big upset. Maybe Lucian, but I hope not because I like him. Maybe Alice, which would be too bad, but we also didn't get to know her too well. So it would also not be the worst. That's the easiest one to deal with. So it's going to say 2. Yeah, like Alice is probably dead. There's a fairly good chance she's dead. This Claire girl probably being held captive, if not already murdered. Yeah, because she says she needs to prepare before going out on a rescue mission, and she doesn't do a great job of it. Which, yeah, that part for the course. Honestly, I'm not surprised that she doesn't do a great job, but she can grab kitchen knives again. But yeah, no, all the nameless servants, all the ones we don't know, are dead. Like, they're just assumed. I'm assuming they're dead. They're gone, so that's sad enough, but we didn't know them. Alice is probably dead. And yeah, she's definitely very naive at the beginning of these books. Yes. Because she becomes less and less human, I think, as she goes, like, not physically, but like, here. So she becomes more savvy, but that's also learning and growing, and she's only 19. She is still very young, so lots to learn. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I hope Lucian's not dead, but the chances are he's dead. I liked him. But yeah, and if they kill Tamlin, that's a big upset. So, I don't know. But maybe. Because they did do that whole they love each other and say goodbye thing. It was really intense. Like when you do that, it's also not always a good sign, because then the one of the lovers might die. But I don't know. Find out. We'll have to find out. So yeah, so chapter 32 on Sunday at 3 o'clock. As per usual. Of course, you'll see me in chat at some of our other things. If you're going to be gossiping about girls at Gossip Girl, I'll be there in the chat. And also, I have been thinking about doing more streaming outside of this. Sometimes you guys will see that I pop in and out, going live, just adding stuff in. But I would love to hear more about what you would like to see. So I did that sort of slumber party vibes stream last Friday where we all hung out. I enjoyed that. That was fun. That was a nice chill time. We could do more makeup stuff. Crafting and doing pasty making was a joy with Jackie and Lisa. So that was good. And I can teach you guys more crafty fun things if you want to do crafty things. But I also know that that's something that Jackie and the crew are looking to do more of. So I don't want to do all my skills and have them all used up over here necessarily right away. But we can definitely look at doing more of that. Yeah, I like fun chill stream. I just have to find a good time for everybody to come and hang. But I love that. And yeah, so crafty stream is something I can do. We can look at doing some chill gaming stuff. I'm not a gamer. I'm by no means. But if you have any interest in seeing me try to figure out how to do that, I can figure out how to do that, because that could be fun. But I'm good at puzzles, but I'm not good at I'm not good at anything where I have to fight or kill people. Any of that I've always been bad at, because I panic and I press the buttons and I go ah. Because I'm very much a very flippity flighty woman, and it's very difficult. So, ooh, so that's very fun. Thirsty Thursday theme. Yeah, I like that. I'll have to see what time is good for Thursday, because they're yes, Queen, clearly a horror game stream is ideal for me. I've been watching Kyle Cop, that some of us noticed, just because my schedule has allowed it recently. He's playing Walking Dead. And I'm surprised that hasn't been freaking me out as much as it is, because I hate zombies. Zombies are my least favorite monster. They scare me the most of all monsters. I'm afraid of them and I hate them. So yeah, but I've actually been enjoying that with everybody. So if I was playing it in the full light and I had people hanging out with me, it might not be bad. But Yeah, like a point and click is more my speed. Nothing that I have to like aim a gun. I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm not good at that. But yeah, so if you're interested in anything specifically, if there's anything that y'all want to see, just let me know. Hit me up. There's the suggestion thing on my Twitch page. Most of you know where to access me, so you can do that. And yeah, just let me know what you'd like to see, because I want to hang out with you guys more, and I want to make content that you all enjoy. I'm really liking the reading, and I'm not planning on stopping that. I'm just planning on adding additional things, so that we can bring more people in to the community, from the community that we already know, that can come and hang out here too. And then eventually we can fill every single day, and every single one of your free hours with content. Between all of us, you'll never have a moment when you can't turn on somebody, I guess, is the idea at this point. So, yeah. Yes, content friends. I want more content friends. And I was like, I'm so desperate to get to that 50 follower mark. Like, it's not even that like I want to get to like, I don't even fully understand what the next tier, the affiliate tier is going to get me. I just want it. Like, I see the number there and it's like, you're almost there. And I'm like, I want it. I'm like sending out messages all the time, like, just follow me. I know you'll never watch. Just do it. So please. See, so yeah, you stream consistently again too. And yeah, see, I'd like that sub button. You know, whatever. I just like the achievement. See, that's why I'm good at puzzles, because I can complete the puzzle and then it does the little thing and I get the little dopamine hit. And I go like, yay! I'm like, I solved the puzzle. I get excited about it. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So let me know what you'd like to see more of. Have other people follow the stream if you'd like. And if I get enough people who are interested in stuff and like who actually want to hang out, then we can definitely schedule more things and have more fun and do all kinds of things. Like things that are outside of what Lisa and Jackie are doing. Hopefully I'll end up doing more stuff with them over there, because that was so fun. Doing the pasty making stream, and we've talked about some other stuff, so that would be great. And I'll probably co-stream with them on some things, but yeah. Very good. Okay, so anyway, yeah, hit me up and we'll see you on Sunday for chapter 32. I don't know if there's any more spiciness coming, but we have what happened today. We will always have what happened today. All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. We'll see you all very soon.